Hey everybody, welcome back to Behind the Emerald Veil with Mandy and Allison from Soul Star Energy Collective. We are intuitives, healers, and spiritual teachers here to help you activate and understand your soul gifts. And we are back with another episode in this witchy Halloween theme. So
Ooh. I'm like, it's been fun.
It has been fun.
We've had a lot of great feedback from it. So I love that.
Lots of great conversation in the community space and lots of messages on Instagram, and we're just learning so much. So
I think it's hitting home for people, right?
I think so too.
I think maybe it's like resonating inside, and it's kind of like being like, oh my God, like I think it's they're feeling it. I hope.
I think so too. I agree. We're activating something.
Damn. So, well, we can talk about where everybody can find us, Mandy.
Yeah, if you can find us on Instagram at soul.star.energy.collective. That's Allison's fault with all the dots.
It looks better.
Yeah, does it?
It does, because it separates the words.
Okay. It is a really long one word.
Oh, fuck, I know. Yeah.
And you can also find us in our community where we're super active, like daily, and we're answering questions and we're chatting and we're starting conversations, and everything will be linked in our show notes. But we are on the Mighty Networks app. So it is a third-party app, but we have a community in that space. And you can search the community Soul Star Energy Collective. Like you can search our business there, and then it'll take you to the community space, which we call Soul Star Lightworkers. So it is a great place to continue learning and chatting and all that sort of stuff. And of course, our website has all of our details on there too.
So we actually recorded this yesterday in Mandy's crawl space. And it got deleted. So we are being censored big time. So we're not sure if it was spirit being like trying to get our attention. So we of course went into meditation to be like, what's going on?
Yeah. And we did receive some stuff.
Yep. So we're trying that out today, but we're also trying out recording it on Zoom instead of in your crawl space. It was actually really chilly yesterday.
I was going to say, at least we're not freezing to death, because it is even colder today than it was yesterday.
Yeah. And those electric blankets don't work anymore. We should throw them out.
But they're still blankets.
I know. So we are doing this again, which is going to be great and fun because I hate repeating myself.
Yeah, me too. But for those that are listening to the podcast, I think, never mind.
Keep your mouth shut. No.
Could you? You're giving me the eyes.
No, I was just like, seriously?
I know.
Well, now we have to say it. Okay, so Mandy and I were like, okay, we're doing this on Zoom. And Mandy came up with like, maybe we should try posting like the video of Zoom of us on here. And I was like, okay. I'm like, yeah, we'll see. And so like before we got started, I said, like, let's not put pressure on ourselves. Like if we watch it and it's like, ew, why do I look that way?
Well,
or whatever it is, if we don't feel comfortable,
we're not going to post.
We're not going to post it. So, of course, when Mandy starts going, and we're going to, and then it's like, dude, don't put the pressure on.
It just started to flow through. You know how sometimes I know that?
I know it's how it happens to you all the time.
I know. And then I hear myself saying what I'm saying. I'm like, fuck, I shouldn't be saying this, but it's already coming out. God.
Can't. So it's either going to be on YouTube or it's not. So you can either listen to this and watch us or not.
It'll be a mystery and a surprise.
It'll be a mystery. Okay. So we are talking about, I guess I have to jog my memory. We are talking, what are we talking about? Samhain.
Well, we're going to talk about Halloween because that's next week. So we thought we would end the series talking about Halloween, but in the witchy word, where it's called Samhain.
Yeah. And then also talking about the witch's wound.
Yeah, we're gonna elaborate a little bit more on the witch's wound because we only got to touch on it a little bit in the first episode of this witch series,
and how that can look and how you can work on that.
Yeah.
So Yahoo, the one thing that was kind of like a saving grace, that it got deleted and we're starting over again,
Yeah.
is I found we were yesterday when we started off the podcast, we were talking about Selwyn, but there was a lot of like technical, or what is it? I don't even know. But it was like
She was
stuff that
bored.
I was bored.
She was bored.
And so when we had to do this over again, and I was like, so can we cut a bunch of the
Yeah.
extra? And you totally felt it too. So
Yeah.
it was like, so
Well,
now,
because you were bored, we got off on like way too many tangents, and because you just didn't want to talk about it, so you ended up taking us in all these
you know
different
what?
places,
Okay, so
and it
this
was
is
hard
what,
to flow.
yeah. And what happens is if I'm bored, my mind's somewhere else.
Yeah.
So then when you would talk, all of a sudden it would like put me on like, huh. And then I would go somewhere else on a thought process and then I would speak it. So
Yeah.
if I'm like totally engaged in the conversation, my mind doesn't have time to go off.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get started then. Okay, here we go. So
Yeah.
we're, like Ali said, we're going to talk about Samhain. Samhain is the witch's word for Halloween. So it's like a pagan festival or a pagan tradition, a pagan holiday, essentially. And it starts the New Year. It's called the Witch's New Year as well. So Samhain is a part of what we call what we learned about was the Wheel of the Year. So this was the boring part. We're not going to get into the whole Wheel of the Year because Allie's like, oh my God. But I'm just going to give a general understanding of what it is in case somebody's curious.
Okay.
It's just opportunities throughout the year to work with the energies of the season. So the Wheel of the Year is working with the natural cycles of the earth and the heavens. So we have Samhain, but it works with the equinoxes and the solstices. But traditionally, Samhain is the beginning of the new year for the pagan tradition. So we're not going to get into all of those, but we will share about Samhain. So Samhain is on October 31st.
Samhain. Yes.
Samhain. And how do you spell that?
Shut up, Maggie.
It's like
I totally spelled it like a totally different way. Just like my words, my spelling is the same.
It's fine. I just like to tease you, but
I know, I love it.
It's actually spelled like Samhain.
It's weird.
It is. So it's said so different than what it looks like. So nobody can blame anybody for getting that wrong. I have to Google it every time. I'm like, how do you spell Samhain again? I have no idea.
Or how do you say Samhain? If I saw it the way it was spelled,
I'd say it's Samhain.
Samhain.
I would. I'd be like
Samhain.
What? Champagne.
What?
Samhain. Yeah. Anyway, so Samhain is October 31st to November 1st in the Northern Hemisphere, but in the Southern Hemisphere. So we have lots of listeners in Australia. For our Australian friends and anybody down there, they celebrate Samhain on April 30th to May 1st. So it's a different, because it's just like the midpoint between the fall equinox and the winter solstice.
Well, and the reason is because it's the close of the...
Oh, yeah. So it's the close of the harvesting season. So in pagan tradition, they would celebrate the end of the harvesting season with this festival, Samhain, before like the dark winter cold nights set in, and the days were dark forever and all that sort of stuff. So it was basically their celebration. Last run. It was a celebration. So they were done,
big party,
done all the harvesting, everything's canned and put away and like ready to go for the winter. And they're celebrating this difficult, because harvesting is hard. It's like a lot of work.
Yeah, so they're literally celebrating their vacation.
Yeah, because now they're going to sleep.
Yeah, now they're going to sleep and they're going to eat and they're going to eat some more, and that's about it. Yeah. They're in their hibernation stage.
Yeah. So with Samhain, like with the festival, a lot of the ancient tradition of the festival, they would light bonfires, they would bring together the community, the village. I'm going to sit on my hands again.
Mandy.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a
fidgeter.
I'm a fidgeter and I'm using a mic, and then Allie's like, oh my God, there's so much feedback, but it's because I'm touching everything. So I told her I don't even know if there's
feedback with all of this. Like I've got my smoothie going, I've got my water bottle going. I'm like, I've got everything going.
We're
I'm
gonna
just
hear it.
eating and drinking while we do this.
And I'm trying to sit on my hands so I don't touch everything. Okay. So, okay, traditionally with the Samhain ceremonies and festival, they would bring together everybody from the village, like the communities, and they would gather and light bonfires and have a huge feast and just like have a really big old party to celebrate. It was a big celebration. But it is also said that, and they knew way back then too, that the veil is very thin between our world and the spirit world at this time of year. So they would use this time to connect with past loved ones at the same time. However, there was also an underlying fear of, I guess, like connecting with like evil spirits,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
why people were wearing like masks or dressing up.
So they could scare them.
So they would say that so the purpose of wearing masks and dressing up was that they thought that if they did that and they came across, like they were walking out at night in the dark and they came across a spirit, the spirit would just assume that it was one of them, so it wouldn't like come after them.
So that's like the ghost, dressing up as a ghost for
Yeah, a
Halloween.
ghoul or whatever.
No,
Yeah.
just a ghost, just a white sheet with holes cut
That's
out.
what they did. Yeah.
They'll
Yeah.
be surprised. They'll be like, nope, that's one of us. Keep
Mhm.
going.
Pretty
They're
much that
so
was their
smart.
thought. That was their thought process. But that's where the beginning of the dressing up for Halloween started.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and we like talked about yesterday how like the bonfire, a lot of people do like they do little parties. It's not just trick or treating. Like you do little
Yeah.
parties and get-togethers and bonfire and apples.
Yeah. I don't know how many apples. I don't
I
know
don't know.
how many Halloween parties I've gone to in my past where we literally had a bonfire and smoked or like had a
Smoked
weenie
weed.
roast, smoked. I was gonna say smoked wieners. We had like a hot dog roast. That's what I was trying to say.
Smoked wieners.
But that's traditionally and that was tradition, like the bonfires in the pagan tradition were to light up the dark, but also to give warmth and within the celebration and stuff, but also because the veil was so thin at this time, they would present offerings to the fire for their past loved ones. So they would present offerings to appease the dead, ensure that they and their livestock would survive the cold winter ahead. So it was like, here, take my offering and don't kill me through the night or through the winter. Like, I don't want to die through the winter. Please keep my cattle or my sheep alive, my horses alive. I'm going to give you something. Here, help me out. So that was
Jeez,
kind
they
of
just thought the other side was terrible. When in reality, the other side is pure love.
I
Right?
know. Yeah. Well, I mean, also, I guess if you think about it like this, it would be more or less them asking the spirit for help. Like, can you help me
Or would
through?
it be like manifesting in a way, like kind of setting intentions?
Yeah, in a
In
sense, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
However they did that, it was the I guess the act of giving something to the fire was their way of asking for support or help from their
Hmm.
past loved ones. But one of the traditions I thought was pretty neat was that they also would set up dinner, like a place at their dinner table for their past loved ones. And when we were talking about this yesterday, Allie was like, "Oh my God, how many settings would you have to set?"
I was like, what if you lost a lot of people? I'm like, you'd have to get a whole other table for each setting. I'm like, that's crazy.
So we have like the kids' table and the dead people's table.
I'm trying not to laugh too loud because I know it's super loud on this thing.
No, it's fine.
It's okay. Yeah, well, it's fine right now. But I was like, okay. And you know me, because again, I'm like basic
Easy
basic
button.
bitch right here. I'm just like, dude, you can honor your loved ones just by thinking about them.
Yeah.
You don't need to do like this whole thing, but again, that's me. Would I do it? No. But I'm not big into ceremony or
Yeah.
doing those things, but that's something that you feel drawn to and that
Yeah.
you're going to do this year, right? She's going to
Yes.
set up a skeleton in the chair too to really like,
To
yeah,
really amplify the
yeah,
energy.
yeah.
No, I'm not, but it's going to be, so you, just for anybody who's like, well, do you have to set multiple spaces? No, you don't.
Oh
Only
no.
one, only one,
They
only
just
one.
rotate. They rotate. Who sits in there?
They
That's
all
like
sit
my
on top of
turn.
each other.
Yeah, my turn, jerk. It's like
But you know what also I found interesting was that they actually gave like a plate of food and had it sit there as the offering to their past loved ones, and then they would put that because obviously nobody's eating it. They would put it in
you put the
the
leftovers from that
offering.
meal.
Yeah, they put it into the bonfire later in the evening as like a way to honor and offer that offering to their past loved ones in another way. So I found that interesting. But I was telling Nick about this tradition because, you know, he and I are both like, our ancestors are both English, Scottish, Irish, like very British. And these are pagan traditions, which is kind of like from England and, you know, back there. So this is something that is connected within our both of our lineage.
Yeah.
So I was telling him about this, and his dad passed away when he was quite young, like when he was 10. So I was sharing with him this tradition of setting a table to honor the past loved ones. And because the veil is really thin and all these things, and it's just in my mind, it's just another way to visit or to connect with them. And again, like you don't have to do anything, but you know, going to a cemetery is the same idea. Like people will go to the cemetery to sit with their past loved one and bring flowers and all that sort of stuff. And they're just bringing that act to the dinner table on Halloween or on Samhain. But again, it's just another way. And so he was like, oh yeah, that's so interesting. So of course, that sounds any way to honor his dad he's into, right? And another thing that people will do is create an altar, which is literally, we've talked about altars in the past a little bit, but literally for a past loved one on Halloween, if you wanted to create an altar, all you have to do is, you know, have a little space and you put a picture and a candle or a crystal and something that you are connected like with them by. So for example, if it was a grandfather, you might place their pipe there, or a grandmother, a watch or a piece of jewelry. For Nick's dad, for example, we would put a dime there because he's always sending us dimes. So just little things to just like, you know, we love you kind of thing.
Yeah.
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 Ali's like,
no, you're not selling me on it. I was like, was that a pitch or I'm still not so and that's the thing. I don't care. Everybody do what they want to do. And that's why like Mandy resonates with it. I don't, but that's how, you know, like that's life. That's everybody.
Yeah.
Like that's everything.
Yeah.
And so it's like you do what feels good.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what's important. So yeah. What else with the
well, it's also a night of like divination. So a lot of witches or modern day witches or back then people would really use this night because the energy is so amplified to connect with past loved ones. So mediumship skills are really potent, or online, or you know, a lot of people will do seances on Halloween. So there's a lot of opportunity to work
dance
with that
naked
energy.
under the moon around a fire.
Yeah.
All of the things. Yeah. You know, we were talking about like, I'm like, I wonder how like the Halloween came to be. You know, like when did that, because didn't you say it was like the early 1900s that like actually Halloween, like candy trick-or-treating, all of these type of things.
So from what my research, and it's all like there's so much to research, like, but and I did not do a deep dive on this because I don't really care how Halloween came to you know what I mean? I was more interested in like Samhain and the ancient traditions of being a witch. That's what I was like super interested in. But you know, it is to be able to tie it to modern day. I guess like because there was this tradition back in our back in the ancestors in our lineage and stuff like that, at some point with the immigration over to America, a lot of people would bring this tradition over with them, and they would still have kind of like Samhain celebrations, but the church changed the name at some point from Samhain to like All Saints Day or something like that. And then it sort of evolved over time again, and it became Halloween when the traditions and the things that they were doing just kind of evolved over time. So it wasn't until the 19th century where Halloween really took hold, and the costumes and the dressing up was really popular and exciting. And at some point, people, like, I think it was either kids or women or somebody, like some group, would get dressed up and then go to people's houses and ask for food, like an apple or something like that. That became a thing. And then eventually that evolved to asking for treats or trick-or-treating, that sort of stuff.
Candy.
Yeah. So today, in today's society, it's much, much different. But there's still a lot of witches, like modern day witches, that celebrate Samhain. And there's a whole community out there, like online or in other places. But I'm usually just online, so learning about this sort of stuff. But they do really honor and respect the witches, like the wheel of the year, and Samhain as the witches' new year. And they will still do the bonfires and the offerings to their past loved ones into the bonfire. And then what I found interesting is that they'll actually use the ashes of the bonfire, and they'll save the ashes and use it in some of their potions and spell casting for the rest of the year.
Mm.
Isn't that cool?
Because of the energy that's been put into that. Yeah. So they're like taking that energy.
Yeah.
It's just, that's kind of even like moon water.
Yeah.
Right. Taking the full moon and drinking that high vibrational water. It's kind of like the same thing, infusing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it.
So super potent work. And also still a very potent night for actually it's okay, so still a potent night for divination and connecting and all that sort of stuff. But I actually was listening to a podcast, and she is a psychic medium, and she shared that she actually takes the time off around Samhain as a way to respect the spirits and the past loved ones, because she felt like in her work she wanted to respect them, so she didn't feel like working in that way was a way to respect them. So she wanted it to, I don't know, she just takes time off, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, like, if it's a tradition that you follow and a holiday for yourself, you would take time off anyways from working, right?
Well, I'd probably do it for that case instead of respect. Like I just, knowing what we know on the other side, I don't see, they're not sitting there going, like, these things don't mean to souls,
as
these
much.
Things don't mean, and it's a very earthly thing. And as we know, our infinite souls are all over the place. So yeah, now I have definitely found that my channel has been way open.
Even you're way open right now. And we're like, because we're about a week away from Halloween, and your crown is like wide open.
Yeah, it's just like pouring in.
It is.
And I'm like, what is this? But now I'm starting to think, I'm like, oh, maybe it's not my new norm. Maybe it's just because it's so thin. The veil is so thin, and it's just like flowing on in. I'm like, heck, I was like talking to my sister's dog yesterday, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, he's literally communicating with me. And I'm like, this is so messed up.
Wait, is the dog passed away, or was the dog
he's
alive? Okay. You were just like telepathically chatting with this dog?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. What his mission is and all of that. And I was just like, I'm like, yes, I'll tell her.
Stop bugging me.
That I feel like a psychopath because I'm like, Thor wants to tell you something. But I think they're getting used to it now. Yeah. But it's like, it's just so thin. I hope it's my new norm, but it could easily be, because the energy, it's the veil is so thin, so it's super easy to receive and connect and all of that stuff. So yeah, that's less exciting. Work. It is exciting.
It is less work for you. You're just like, oh, let me tap in.
Yeah. Crazy. I'd like to be like this all the time because I like things easy.
Okay, I think that's all about Samhain. So I mean, there's not a lot to it. It's a tradition, a pagan tradition from our ancestors way back in the day. And it's just a beautiful way to honor and respect your past loved ones. The veil is very thin. have a bonfire, have a feast, gather with friends and family, and
celebrate. It is the new year.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's fun. Yeah. I'm gonna have a Samhain celebration this year. I'm having some friends over. Like Aubrey's daughter's gonna, or friend Aubrey's daughter, Aubrey, my daughter Aubrey is having a couple friends come trick or treat with her, and we're gonna have their parents over. They won't know it's a Samhain celebration.
Will you say don't sit there?
They might be like,
that is our special guest.
Yes, I never thought about that. I don't know.
Like, are you setting up a table?
I was thinking I was gonna do the altar for Nick's dad, but I don't think I'll do the table setting. No,
not with your friends. I mean, like that's not for you to sit in.
Don't sit there.
You're being rude.
You're sitting on my ghost.
You're sitting on my past loved one. And but that food's not for you.
They do know about the stuff I do, like the work I do and stuff. And so they probably wouldn't be super like weirded out. They'd just be like, okay.
They're probably going to leave and be like, what the fuck was that?
They're just going to have a group chat.
She's taking this too far.
Group chat about how crazy Mandy went. I'm dressed as a witch for Halloween.
And then you like have a little bit too much to drink and you're jumping off the roof with your broomstick. And you're like, shit, it's supposed to work.
If anything, it'll be me telling them about the history of the pointed hat and the pointed shoes and
and the penises. Yeah.
We don't want to get censored.
Holy shit.
We can't say anything.
That is part of the human body. Everybody should just chillax. Hey, Mike, is the Catholic Church censoring it?
Maybe.
What's that? What's the word? Phallic?
Yeah, they use the word phallic.
I love it. It just makes me laugh. Phallic. We can say phallic.
Yeah.
That's a word for a penis, right?
It looks like it's a word to describe like
what a penis looks like.
What looks like a penis. Yeah. So penis shaped. Phallic. Okay, let's move on. Okay, we're going to move on to the witch's wound.
Because it's so fun. Witch's wound. Let's do it.
Okay, so
the shadow part.
Why don't we talk about, let's recap the witch's wound.
Yes, so the witch's wound is... I don't know. Okay, so it's a wound that a lot of people feel that is within us that maybe we haven't necessarily tapped into, but it's from the time that our ancestors or ourselves lived in those times that we talked about in the history, and that this imprint is carried forward within our lineage, carried forward within our soul. And we just have this deep remembering or knowing within us of these times when we were prosecuted without cause, and, the fear and all of that kind of filtrated that time. That's within us. So it's funny because you talk about past lives and stuff, and you start your new life off and you don't remember anything else and you're free. It's fresh, clean slate. And you start this off, but but then it's those experiences are still kind of lingered within your soul. And it's you have this, you're I don't know, anything. You can be man, for myself, I'm I love farms. I'm so drawn to farms. I feel pulled to farms. But I've never been on, owned a farm or even want to be on a farm, but I feel this pull to it. We're kind of I wonder if I lived a past life where I was on a farm. Right. Mm-hmm. And so it's those little whispers of memories that they're not there, but you just have this inner knowing that keeps popping up. And so that's kind of the witch wound. And it will show up in different ways within our life. So one of the things would be, fear of, being ridiculed, or fear of being yourself and not being accepted for who you are.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense, because back in the day, if you were anything that resembled, if you were a woman that owned her sexuality or had a high sex drive,
witch.
witch. If you were a woman that was very self-sufficient and was able to, take care of herself and didn't need a man or whatever, witch. So, these were the things that, being that person, being different, whatever, it wasn't safe to show up authentically. It was safe to show up as, the constructed norm of what, you know, the woman should look like in that time.
Yeah, like the
So,
patriarch was formed during this time, and they placed women in a box, and this was your role. And if you stepped outside of this box, you were a witch. And this is how they were controlling the narrative with, creating this fear around a woman who didn't fit in this box. So if she must be a witch. So we talked about this in the last 2 podcast episodes. Definitely, if you haven't listened to them, go and we'll deep dive in there a little bit more. So other ways that you can tell if you have a witch wound would be being in the spiritual closet and feeling like you can't share about your magical interests. So you're like you're listening to our podcast, for example, on your walk, and you're really enjoying it because
because you
are, but you don't want to share it with anybody else because you don't want them to be like, oh my God, like, what are you listening to? Do you know what I mean? So that would be an indication that you have a witch wound. And that was me, and that was you. Like that, I listened to podcasts and YouTube videos and read books, and like I was deep down in that rabbit hole for a long time before I shared it with anybody. And then I finally came across Allison who would listen to me, and I just like bleh, all of the things I was learning
because you knew it was safe.
Because I knew it was safe. I knew it was safe, but she was the only person for a long time that I was able to talk to about this. And as soon as I found her, I globbed onto her, and here we are today.
God, she wouldn't let go.
But you were like, tell me more. And I was like, I sure will.
Yeah, like all of the things. But it's like, that spiritual closet, like there's still aspects of us that are still in it.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like, we still suffer with that. Like, I definitely was like very slow progression. It was like a pinky toe was coming out the door. And I'm like, and it's still like something that, plagues, like, like even if I'm like listening to a video and I think, oh, this is a bit too out there. So even if the family know, obviously they know that I'm into this, but I would still like listen with my earphones on when it would get a little like too out there.
Yeah.
And because I would worry that they'd be like, oh shit, what's, wow, that's where she's at, or whatever. Like again, it's like
it's
being
true.
Prosecuted, it's being judged, it's being even the fear that they think I'm like losing it.
Yeah.
Right? There is that fear. I still have that with my family.
Me too. And I have to say, I literally just the other night listened to a video while laying in bed beside Nick, and he was watching his show, and then I was listening to a video about like energy and an energy forecast. And before that, like I was always headphones on, or I'll listen to it later. I don't want him to overhear because he might, like, he's not going to understand and he's going to judge or whatever. But so this was the first time that I kind of played it out loud. It was soft, so I could hear it. I didn't want to disturb him, but if he could listen or he could hear, then ask the questions, right?
Yeah, but then that you had starting to kind of feel safe with that. I'm like, I found I was sharing my reading that I had with Anna Marie and with my mom. And part of that reading was talking about the witch and my history as a witch and my, ability to spellcast and all these things. And, I definitely was filtering what I was saying.
Yeah.
But I knew when I started identifying as a witch or even saying that, the energy changed.
Really?
My mom, oh yeah, it was like, and like, I think she even said at one point, like that total, like, oh no.
She's closed up. Your mom for sure. It takes your mom a little while to be okay with it. But I think once you really just, I guess, what am I trying to say? When you really break it down to what is spellcasting? Spellcasting is literally, it's saying out loud the things that you're calling in. It's manifesting. So instead of saying spellcasting, we could say manifesting, and your mom would be totally fine with it. Instead of
Exactly.
saying which, we could say intuitive, and your mom would be totally fine with it.
Oh, and it's the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
it's just
So,
different
but she
words.
just, yeah, and it's like, and even like we've talked about how powerful your words are. We've
Mm-hmm.
talked about that take away the witch thing. We've talked about that. That's in Intuition 101, our course Intuition 101, talking about like what your thoughts and your words say are creating an energy that is reverberating out into the world, and everything, and which is kind of overwhelming at times, because you think like sometimes you have thoughts that are just not
But
high
if it's
vibrational.
constant, if
If
it's
it's
constant,
yeah,
yeah.
so it's different in that sense. I'm like, I know, where was I think I had it today. Because I'm always talking in my head to myself. And I was driving somewhere, and somebody, oh yeah, you know what it was? Oh, those kiss and drops at school.
What's
Kiss
a
and
kiss
drop,
and
kiss
drop?
and drop. Oh. So it's one of these. I don't know why I even engage in it. I'm
What
like,
the
but Tanner wants to be dropped there. So basically, the school a few years ago set up this kiss and drop where it's like they just put these pylons. You pull in, everybody pulls in. You stop, kids get out, move on, right? So it's supposed to be this like
it's a
thing
drop
that's
off.
it's a drop off, kiss and drop they've called it,
Oh,
and you know it's obvious the rules. If you need to get out of your car to get your kid out of the car,
don't
kiss
use
and
it.
drop is not for you. No.
Yeah.
Okay. So Tanner likes to be dropped off there. Carter likes to go somewhere else. We switch every day. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm entertaining this, because it makes me angry. Because I can't believe how many people don't get the rules. And I'm like, what are we doing? So this morning, it just drives me nuts. And so then this morning, we go in. I'm like, and I'm very like, we're going to this kiss and drop. Get out. We are respectful.
Mm-hmm.
So boys are out, car in front of me. I see a kid get out. I see another kid get out. I see the door left open. And I'm like, oh no, they forgot to close the door. And the guy starts driving. And I'm like, oh no, what's he going to do? And I'm like trying to figure out, like, what are we going to do? Right. Because now it's like, okay, let's move on out. Oh no, just drives further, stops, and lets another kid out.
What?
And I was like, oh, this isn't valet parking. I'm like, your kid gets out and they walk.
Oh my gosh.
Because obviously in the kiss and drop, there's one spot that is right where the playground is, where the entrance is.
Yeah.
And so they were doing that to stop so that the one could get out. And so in my head, I'm like, how selfish. And I'm like, this is just silly. And every time I use this kiss and drop, there is something ridiculous that people do.
Yeah.
And so I'm driving behind this person, and I'm irritated.
Tell me more.
So I'm in my head, just like, if I could say this, if I could say that, and then I get the tingle on my head.
Oh, yeah.
And when I get the tingle, that spirit being like, okay, stop it.
Keep it high vibe,
Keep
Allison.
it high vibe, Allison. But I'm like, anytime I get into those like modes, like I'm not gonna go pull the person over and have road rage. Just let me
But you're
sort
still
it out in my head.
you're still sending that energy out towards them, because
I'm glad.
I'm glad I created that energetic cord between us. They can feel my anger and frustration.
Like, I know, but to me, it's like, you know how I am, right and wrong. And I sit there and I'm like, come on, guys, you're being selfish. Like, if like it's just
they know that.
Me.
They know
I
that.
guess they
probably just don't care.
And so that's where I'm like, I don't think I can do this lineup anymore. But it's not fair for Tanner. But I'm like, those things drive me nuts.
Yeah.
Because it's just so rude.
Okay.
But that's when we say about we have lots of time. I'm allowed to have one rant.
You can tell. I'm like, let's rein it in, Allison. She's like, let me rant.
Tell you were going, and I'm like, leave it. But that's what we're talking about, is the lower vibration thought. So it's like you're gonna have those times that you're gonna be in that, lower figures. There's something's gonna happen, and it's fine. It's not like it's not like I'm sending daggers at the person and it's gonna ruin their day. And it was more like spirit was like, hey, Allison, let's get this. Let me give you a little reminder all over your head. And sometimes I'm like, fuck off. I know.
I'm
not stupid. But other times I'm like, yes, thank you for the reminder.
Mhm.
Let it go.
Let it
But like, let it go. But that is the intention,
Mhm.
the thought, all of this creates an energy.
Mhm.
And so being very aware of that, and so that's literally what spell casting is being intentional with your words
Yep.
and being intentional with your thoughts and what you're wanting to manifest and bring into your life,
Yeah, and do you wanna
right?
know what I really love about like, I haven't practiced spell casting yet, but do you know what I love about the idea of spell casting is that there are, like, spells, as in, like, words that rhyme, poems,
Oh,
that
I
you can say out loud when you're manifesting, and it's just adding extra potency to whatever it is that you're manifesting, in my opinion. So,
mm,
using whatever witchcraft uses, spell casting, candles, scribes or whatever they're doing, writing things down. It's literally just adding extra energy to what it is that you're calling in. So we're going to link a book in the show notes that we have both been reading. It's called Spellbound. Have you've been reading it, right?
no.
Oh, okay.
I bought it and
Yeah.
I just haven't read it.
You haven't got there yet. But you're
No.
reading a different witchy book?
Yeah, it's called Witch.
Okay, so we'll post both in the show notes. So if you're interested in a little bit of beginner witchcraft or learning a little bit more about the tools that witches use
Hmm.
or witchcraft or spell casting or any of that sort of stuff, you can take a look at these books in the show notes. But going back to the witch's wound,
Yeah, we never left it.
I know we didn't. I guess I tangent off on spell casting. My fault.
Mandy did a tangent, which
Okay,
led to
so
my tangent.
Another way to tell if you have a witch wound would be if you are feeling judgy or jealous of those that are speaking their truth and doing this work without fear. So if you're watching somebody on TikTok or Instagram and you're just like, oh, like annoyed because they're doing it and you're not, that's
Well,
probably,
and you may not even know that that's why you're annoyed,
yeah,
right?
well,
It may
yeah.
not even be um they're doing it and you're not, because you may not even be there at
Mm-hmm,
that stage. It
mm-hmm,
just, if you, it's anything that triggers you, it invites you to look within to see why that triggered. Where is that connected to? What part of that is triggering you?
yeah,
That to me has just been so helpful in healing, in shadow work, in all of those things. Is when I am triggered, I instantly turn that, light onto myself. And I'm like, okay, why is this triggering me? It's not necessarily the person.
mm-hmm,
It's something within me, because you know what? People can do whatever the heck they want to do. It's how we react.
yeah,
It's our choice on how we react. So if something is triggering, it's like, where is this stemming from?
yeah.
And so, yeah, if you see somebody that's totally in their witchy power and all those things, and you're finding yourself sitting there and being like, oh my God, they're so stupid, or like, oh God, they've gone crazy, or all those things. Sometimes it's like, take a step back and be like, why does this bother me so much?
Yeah, but that could also be tied, like, because I feel that witch wound is very connected to the sisterhood wound as
100%.
well. Because
Because it
when
is.
because when we were being persecuted and accused of witchcraft, they were also having women turn on each other and accuse each other of witchcraft in order to save themselves and their families.
Mm,
So you were tortured until you confessed, and then you were tortured even more until you confessed about who you were a witch with. And so you
mhm.
would be forced to point out your friends you thought you were saving yourself and your family. So you had to put other people out there and accuse other people because that's what you thought you were doing to save your family and yourself. When in fact you guys were all just burned and we are all just
So
burned
sad.
and
Yeah.
murdered. But that
Yeah.
was the beginning, I would say, of the witch wound and of the sisterhood wound, because before that women would gather and help each other and come together and share skills and teachings of the different skill sets that they had. And, some midwives would, help other women birth their children all throughout the village. And if you had a certain skill in like plant medicine and you had a kid that was ill, you would bring them in. Like it was just this beautiful community of women helping each other. And then the witch trials, and now we're all telling on each other and confessing and accusing each other of, working with demons and the evil and witchcraft. And so, so that kind of definitely ties through into this lifetime a lot for a lot of women. A lot of women are dealing with the sisterhood wound as well.
I just like heard somebody say, when you talked about the bad side of witchcraft, kind of like, but what about the people that did use it for dark magic? And it's like, you know what? That's absolutely people did. And people do that in everything.
And they do that today.
You have a minister in the church, right? You'll have one that's great. And how many have we seen that have been prosecuted for, whatever? Teachers, it's everywhere.
There's the duality. This is a planet of duality.
Yeah, so you're always going to find the bad within the good. There's always going to be two sides to it. So, but it's funny though, with witchcraft, it seems like maybe the few that have done it, it's become more of the bigger, like that it's like blanketing that, okay, then everybody has, right? Or like, I'm just scared to bring anything up.
I
know. Because of, well, I was just thinking, like, even just what we've dealt with in the last few years, the polarity within this virus and all of that. And if somebody had an opinion outside of anybody else's, you all of a sudden became, or you're asking questions, or you're kind of bringing up narratives that were maybe not the common narrative.
You were a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah, it was blanketed.
That's the new age way to say you're a witch, in my opinion.
You're a conspiracy theorist. And so it was like the moment, and I remember being put into that because I remember having a conversation with my sister, and it was something we were talking about, one of the many things throughout these last few years that have been polarizing, and, people have been like on either side of. And I remember like talking about it, and of course they were on the opposite side as me because I became this black sheep at some point because I had different thoughts. And I remember her kind of like saying something, not realizing I was on the other side, right? And said, oh yeah, like this happened, and we know that it's just these conspiracy theorists. It's like these people or these anti-vaxxers or whatever it was. It was like, it was just blanketed. And I was like, Kelly, but I'm one of those. Right. And I'm like, do you think I'm what you're calling a conspiracy, like what you think a conspiracy theory? It's conspiracy theorist. What? Theorist? Conspiracy theorist.
I'm not even going to help you because I can't say it.
I don't even know. But I'm like, whatever you are deeming as that person.
Yeah.
And now I'm saying I am that person.
Yeah.
I don't think you're thinking the same thing.
No.
Then it's like, well, no, you're different. No. There's lots of people like that. So it's like, it's one of these things. So I'm thinking like with the witch, for it has had that taintedness that's
absolutely
taken over it, that it's bad magic.
Yeah.
And it's hexes and, and
all
of those things.
We were talking about this last week, how, there's so many different cultures throughout the world. And a lot of these cultures, if you're talking about a witch, the assumption is that person practices black magic and creates curses and hoaxes and does bad things.
They're very superstitious. Like
very superstitious.
Think, even saying it would be like, you've just invited this in.
Yeah. And you know what? That's not the case. So let's heal that.
Yeah, we do need to heal that. Let's move on from that. Can we change the narrative, please?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. So another way to tell if you have a witch wound is perhaps somebody who is fearful to step into this work and reclaim your power, and not even step into this work to like do this as a job. What we mean is somebody who's fearful of learning how to do what we do, or learning how to connect to energy, or learning how to connect with past loved ones, learning how to read the Akashic records, learning how to do energy healings. Somebody who is fearful of connecting to their soul is likely because there's a witch wound there, because what's happening is you're afraid that's going to put a highlight on you and you're going to be persecuted.
It's like this unconscious fear that you have no idea why. Maybe you haven't even thought about it. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just one of those things that you're like, no, 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 no. I don't even
I
want to talk about it. I'm not
yeah.
inviting this in. But then if you actually like sat there, haven't you had those times
Yeah.
where all of a sudden you're like, I don't, if somebody said, well, why are you that way? And then you're like, I don't know. I
Yeah.
just always am. And that's that the subconscious, that's that imprint within your soul that is just there,
Hmm.
but you don't know why. And it's something like, even like many times that, if I've talked to friends or anything like that, or even people that have been kind of interested, and they will express and say, but how do you know you're not inviting in the dark?
Well,
Like
that's
they're,
yeah. And the reason we know is because we know what tools to use in order to protect ourselves from that energy.
mhm,
And that's what we teach in our courses. So we're
mhm.
teaching the light, we're not teaching the dark. So we're
Well,
going
and
to
it's like one of those things that you can either be naive to it and unconsciously be inviting it in, because that
well,
happens.
and that it does happen. So
Mhm,
to a lot of people who are trying to open up without having the knowledge on how to do it safely,
mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Or people who are just open naturally without realizing that they're open naturally, those people would really benefit from a little bit of a mentoring or mentorship so
Mhm.
that they can do it safely.
Well, and I felt more empowered
I did
because, of
too.
course, like I had that, there was those thoughts for myself when I was entering into this, and
Hmm.
obviously it wasn't a big fear because I continued. But I remember, like, when I was hearing about, how to protect yourself and all these things, I was like, wait a minute, I have all the control. And I'm like, but if I didn't know this, I had no control.
Yeah.
But when it comes to darker energy or darker entities, it's like the knowledge is powerful. And so knowing what you need to do, knowing that you just need to send them a big, loving, energetic hug and poof, they're gone. I was like, shit. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's so easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah. And I was like, no, I would rather know and have myself open than not know.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
So another way to tell if you have this wound would be perhaps somebody who's afraid to face these shadows and do that inner work because they're afraid to really, like, I don't know, I guess face the reality of why or what
Hmm.
might come from that,
Hmm.
right? And then also, not honoring your gifts and distrusting or not believing what you're receiving. So, and we see this in our students a lot too, where, throughout the 6 months that we're working with them, there's this beautiful evolution of them really stepping into their confidence and their power because we're receiving validation. But that's because we're constantly working with them on that. But it is part of the witch wound is when you are doing it and you don't believe in yourself, or you won't allow yourself to truly believe that you're receiving what you're receiving, or trust that what you're receiving is right. So
Yeah.
there's like this energy of there's like this block where they're like, if you just remove that block and allowed yourself to step into that power, like, and that
Mhm.
confidence, like, wow, that is you truly reclaiming your soul and your energy and your power altogether. So
Your power as a female too, right? Because
yeah.
we have been, as females over the generations, we have been made smaller and
Yeah.
smaller and smaller. And so part of that conditioning has been not believing in ourselves, not standing up for what we believe and all of that. So
Mhm.
it's, even reclaiming all of that. And we talked about this obviously yesterday when we were doing
But
this,
you didn't get to hear
but you didn't get
it.
to hear it, but I'll repeat myself. We were talking about how it was this kind of like epiphany that it was like, holy shit, our courses, because we do, we do these courses to help, anybody, men or women,
Mhm.
connect back to their gifts, connect to their soul, all of those things. But what we do is every week we hold these practice circles. And, we are in this practice circle where we're showing up authentically as ourselves. We are being vulnerable and having to, like you're practicing and you're having
Mhm.
to have the courage to say what you received. And in this circle, I realized we're not just helping heal the witch wound because we're creating a space that it's safe to show up and actually speak it and be
Mhm.
it, but
Mhm.
we're also helping to, you know, heal the sisterhood wound
Yeah.
because you're sitting there, because I will say 99.9% has been females. Um, but you're sitting there and you're like supporting everybody. You're having like somebody saying, I don't know if this is right. Like this could be stupid, what we do
Yeah.
as
Mhm.
people. And then the other classmates or students are sitting there going, no, no, that was amazing. And
Or I got
so
the
it's
same
like,
thing, like
yeah,
excited to validate what they received so that they
so
could feel more
beautiful.
confident in what they're receiving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I just love that it was like yesterday when you were talking, and then all of a sudden I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh my god." I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like these little pods of witch wound healing and sisterhood healing as well as learning a new skill. So I'm like, that's so cool and it's
I
so
know.
needed,
It
you
is so
know?
needed. It is just a,
Yeah,
like extra magic for what we do, but what all other spiritual teachers and mentors are doing as well.
absolutely. Bringing people together in a safe space to show up authentically as they were for
Yeah.
things that they were prosecuted for multiple lifetimes,
Mhm. And
you are healing.
it's almost like how I see it is that it's almost like all the witches are like quietly reclaiming their power. And then at some point soon, the collective is going to be ready for all of us to come out loud and proud. And we're all going to stand there in like this beautiful line of light and divine feminine power where we're just showing up with our hearts. And that's what's going to heal the world.
Yeah,
You know what I
so
mean?
beautiful. It's so
We're all like
nice.
underground training right now. And then when that time is right, you better watch out because we're going to
That's
heal the world.
Yep, that's why I like that song, Sound the Alarm. Sound
Yeah.
the alarm. And it
Yeah.
was like, and it just feels like everybody rising and stepping into their power. I'm like,
Yeah.
freaking love it.
I love it too.
Okay, I know we're running out of time. I have no idea when we started this.
Me either, but I
Did
think
you
it's
look?
soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten.
Me too. But so healing this
Healing the
wound,
witch
because we
wound.
talk about what all the witches' wounds were. So
How to
let's
tell
talk
if you
about,
have one. Yeah. So let's talk
yeah.
about how to heal the witch wound. So one of the ways that you can tell if you or to heal the wound is to learn about the witch in the history. So kind of like what Ali and I are doing, and we feeling really drawn, or we have felt really drawn to deep dive into the history of the witch and to understand it from the roots, and then to see like how the patriarch and the church sort of like created this energy of fear around the word witch and a woman who was reclaiming or who was in her power. So really being able to see that from a higher perspective, that is healing itself. Like that's almost like doing a past life healing, but you're just kind of like bringing it into your conscious awareness into this lifetime.
Yeah. And I find it very healing because, back in those lifetimes, you were stuck in that energy.
Yeah.
Reading back now, you can see it from a higher perspective.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see
Yeah.
it from all angles and
Yeah.
you can see the truth as
Yeah.
well. Yeah. So another way that you can heal this witch wound is to reclaim your power and step into like learning about how to work with energy and how to connect to past loved ones and do similar things to what we do, whether it's like healings or readings, or like if just understanding your energy or energy in general. So
Hmm.
working with other intuitives or other people, or working with teachers or mentors or coaches or whatever it is in any type of container, when you're ready and feel called to take that knowledge a step further and really start to integrate your knowledge and into your embody it. I guess that
Mm.
would be the next step, would be to embody what you're learning and really learn how to anchor that into your energy. That would be fun because it is.
Yes. Yes. And then,
um
like, energy healings and past life. Like, I think, past
yeah.
life readings. So, whether you know how to do this yourself, or you get a somebody, a practitioner that can do that, like Mandy or I, many other people,
Plug.
we don't even like plugging ourselves.
I
We're
know.
so bad.
We are terrible
I'm
business
like sitting
owners.
there going like, I'm like, oh God, or anybody else who does it. Like, don't be like, but it's powerful having past life readings.
Yeah.
And if you go in and say, you're going in for a healing, and, as a practitioner, we can go in, view the past life, and heal the energy of that. I know both of us have witnessed and seen past lives of clients of ours that have been horrific,
Yeah.
with the witch wound, and have gone in and healed that energy. Obviously, we can't change the past. Obviously, we can't take that away, but we can heal and release and do a soul retrieval of that time, that that energy that was created from that traumatic event. We can heal that energy and make it that it's like not affecting you in this lifetime. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. So if you're like, oh man, I have deep witch wounds, I'm well aware I do, but I'm struggling getting rid of them, that's a great thing to be able
Yeah.
to do. That's helpful.
Yeah. So another way to do this, and I'm just thinking of the card reading that you did this week, and kind of the collective energy or the collective message that has been kind of circulating around for the last little while is just really connecting to your sacral chakra and your divine feminine energy, and doing a lot of healing in there, and really, really connecting to the power of being a woman, and your divine feminine energy, and just really honoring that, and doing any healing work that you need to do healing work in the sacral. So, I mean, how do you do sacral healing chakra or sacral chakra healings, Allison?
Allison. I knew the ball was being thrown and I caught it. So it's super easy. I'm like, you can go on YouTube, you can go on Insight Timer and find a guided meditation specifically for the sacral healing. Yeah. And you focus on that. So it's like it can take all of the work out of your hands and bring you to this, uniformed healing, or bringing your attention, and your guides and everything is going to do the rest. They're going to bring forward things that need to be seen. So that's like the easy, super easy way. I know for us, like I know for me, I can sit there and pull the energy of my sacral and kind of sit with that and see. But if you're not there, then
which is, one of the things that we teach in class or in our courses is, pulling forward the energy of your own chakra and receiving messages and insight for yourself. So you don't have to pay another practitioner to do this for you. You can do it for yourself. And then moving forward, like you could do it for your family with their permission. But if you know that they're struggling and you ask them, do you want me to do a healing for you? And then you can do it for them that way. Which reminds me that like we do have Soul Star Healer coming up. It is I just opened like the cart today. So registration is open. And this is something we teach in Soul Star Healers, how to do energy healings, how to work with energy for healings. We don't have a specific like witch wound healing or sacral chakra healing, but once you learn, which we will, I know, as you're talking, I'm like, we should have made a meditation to heal your witch wound. So we will
this month.
Yeah, it just
won't be. Come on. How did we not pick up on that? How did we
not do that? So
last month we like made a whole bunch. Every week we released a guided meditation in our community space.
Yeah.
So if you want some guided meditations,
made
from Mandy and Ellie,
and watch out for the healing your witch wound meditation.
Oh, that's coming. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So we'll do that. But also in general, like learning how to heal with like how to channel cosmic energy to heal yourself and others. That's what we do in Soul Star Healer. Teach you how to channel cosmic energy to heal yourself and others. And we go through all different types of healings, things that we were taught, things that spirit taught us, and then just adding in our own flavor. So that is open there. That will help you. And then you can, once you learn how to do that generally, then you can really niche down into specific things like healing a sisterhood wound, or healing a witch wound, or healing a motherhood wound, or whatever type of wounds we have going on, because
pick it. There's lots. Take one off the shelf.
Flavor of the month. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. So those are ways that you can heal the witch wound. So really getting to know what what it means to be a witch, getting to know the traditions and the practices and the history around witchcraft, and then really working on the energy healings for yourself, past lives, understanding past lives and doing past life healings for yourself. And you can hire practitioners to help you with that, or you could empower yourself and learn how to do that for yourself.
I love that.
Boom.
That is a way to end the podcast.
Yeah.
Boom. Mic drop. Moving on. All right. So thanks so much.
Yeah, that was a great one. If you guys enjoy this podcast, we'd really love for you to share it with your friends and family. We're seeing some great feedback on the podcast. We're really excited every time that we see it grow.
Safe.
If it feels, yeah, if you feel, if you feel safe. No, you got to heal that witch wound and just share it regardless.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So. Or a review. We always love reviews. So it's so nice. I'm like, we're just so honored and blessed and so happy that we get to sit here and do this because we freaking love it.
Yeah.
We love it. We love doing it. So thank you for actually listening so we can continue.
Yeah. So we'll see you next week. Bye.
Okay. Bye.